The constant beeping of hospital machines was the soundtrack to Olivia Carter's life. Standing in the cold clinical hallway, she held a pile of bills that felt like a heavy burden. Her mother's room number, 407, glared at her like a silent accusation. $37,000. The numbers blurred before her eyes, each one pressing down on her chest. "Ms. Carter," the hospital administrator's voice broke through her thoughts. "We need to talk about payment options." Olivia straightened her waitress uniform, worn from a double shift that had just ended. "I'll figure it out," she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. At 27, she had learned to appear stronger than she felt. Rain lashed against the hospital windows, matching the pounding in her chest. She'd make it work. She always did. 2 jobs, little sleep, and a diet of coffee and determination had brought her this far. But staring at those numbers, even her unshakable resolve wavered. The November morning that changed everything started like any other, with exhaustion and black coffee. The Lucky Bean Cafe, where Olivia worked her morning shifts, was a warm refuge for Manhattan's biting wind. Steam rose from cups like whispers of hope, and the smell of fresh pastries almost masked the desperation in her bones. Double espresso, extra shot. A crisp British accent cut through the morning chaos. Olivia looked up, her practiced customer service smile freezing on her face. The man in front of her radiated power like a force field. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than her yearly rent, but it was his eyes that caught her, steel gray and utterly cold. "Name?" she asked, sharp poise over cup. "Nathaniel Blackwood," he replied, not looking at her, too busy tapping on his phone with manicured fingers. Another wealthy executive who saw service workers as part of the scenery. $4.75, she announced, letting a hint of sharpness creep into her tone. He finally looked up, really looked at her, and something shifted in those gray eyes. "You're new here." "Actually, I've been here 8 months, Olivia replied, meeting his gaze. "You just never noticed." A slight smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Clearly an oversight on my part. He pulled out a sleek wallet, extracting a black card that screamed wealth. "Let me make it up to you. Have dinner with me." Olivia's lips tightened. "I'm not interested in your money, Mr. Blackwood." Instead of being offended, his smile widened. "Everyone has a price, Miss Carter," he said, reading her name tag. "It's just a matter of finding the right number." He placed a business card on the counter with deliberate precision. $1 million. One night. The world seemed to tilt. Olivia's fingers gripped the counter, her knuckles white. "Get out," she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "Think about it," he said, sliding the card closer. "You look like someone who could use $1 million. She snatched the card, fully intending to tear it to pieces, but her hand betrayed her, slipping it into her pocket instead. "Your espresso will be ready at the end of the counter, Mr. Blackwood," she said, her voice icy. "Please don't come back." He left with his coffee, the bell above the door chiming his exit. Olivia stood there, her heart pounding, the weight of his card burning a hole in her pocket. She hated him, his arrogance, his assumption, his ability to casually offer life-changing money like it was nothing. But most of all, she hated the tiny voice in the back of her mind, the one that whispered of hospital bills and her mother's fading chances, the one that asked, in the quietest hours of the night, what she wouldn't do to save the only family she had left. The morning rush continued, a blur of faces and orders, but Olivia moved through it on autopilot. Her fingers kept brushing against the card in her pocket, each touch a reminder of the devil's bargain she'd been offered. That night, in her tiny Queens apartment, she sat on her bed, staring at the business card. Nathaniel Blackwood, CEO, Blackwood Industries. His phone number was embossed in elegant script, each digit a temptation she couldn't shake. Her mother's latest test results lay beside her, along with a final warning from the hospital's billing department. The experimental treatment that could save her mother's life might as well have been on Mars. Completely out of reach, Olivia's phone sat heavy in her hand, the screen reflecting her torn expression. $1 million. One night. A simple equation with complex consequences. Her finger hovered over the keypad, trembling with the weight of choice. In the end, it wasn't pride that broke. It was hope. Hope for her mother. Hope for a future that didn't smell of coffee grounds and desperation. The phone rang 3 times before his voice answered, smooth as aged whiskey. "I knew you'd call." Olivia closed her eyes, a single tear tracking down her cheek. "I hate you," she whispered. "That's not a requirement," he replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "The Royalton Hotel. Tomorrow night, at 8. I'll have a contract ready." She hung up without responding, the phone slipping from her fingers onto the bed. Outside her window, the city lights blurred through her tears, a kaleidoscope of broken dreams and desperate choices. In the distance, a siren wailed, its cry echoing her own internal scream. Tomorrow, she would sell a piece of her soul to the devil in a tailored suit. But tonight, she would allow herself to mourn the girl she used to be, the one who believed some things were priceless. Little did she know, Nathaniel Blackwood was sitting in his penthouse office, staring at his own phone, wondering why her defiance had thrilled him more than any business deal ever had. He bought and sold companies worth billions, but something about Olivia Carter's broken "I hate you" made him feel like he'd just made the most dangerous investment of his life. The game was set, the pieces in motion, but neither of them understood the price they would pay, not in dollars, but in the currency of the heart. The Royalton Hotel loomed before Olivia like a glass and steel monument to wealth. 8 o'clock sharp. Her reflection in the revolving doors showed a stranger. The black dress she'd splurged on felt like armor, though its price tag had made her wince. If she was to sell her soul, she'd do it on her own terms. The lobby gleamed with old-world luxury, all marble and crystal, make her feel like an imposter with every click of her heels. At the front desk, she cleared her throat. "I'm here to see Nathaniel Blackwood." "Ah, Ms. Carter," the concierge said with practiced smile. "Mr. Blackwood is expecting you in the penthouse suite. Please follow me." The elevator ride was 40 floors of second thoughts, each passing number on the display, feeling like a countdown to something irreversible. Her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital. Her mother's condition was stable, for now. The reminder steeled her resolve. The penthouse door opened to reveal a suite larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan's glittering skyline, but it was Nathaniel who commanded attention. He stood by a leather armchair, drink in hand, his presence filling the room like smoke. "Right on time," he said, his British accent wrapping around the words like silk. "I appreciate punctuality." Olivia's response was ice. "Let's skip the small talk. You mentioned the contract." A brief smile touched his lips as he gestured to the dining table, where a folder lay waiting. "Straight to business. I like that." He moved toward her, and she forced herself not to step back. "Drink." She walked past him to the table, her hand steady as she opened the folder. The contract inside was several pages long, printed on expensive paper that felt heavy with consequence. Nathaniel stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "It's fairly straightforward. One night, $1 million. Complete discretion required, of course." Olivia's eyes scanned the document, each clause more clinical than the last. "You do this often?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "No," he answered, and something in his tone made her turn to face him. His gray eyes were intense, searching. "You're the first." "I don't believe you." He shrugged, the gesture elegant even in its casualness. "Believe what you like. The money will be transferred before anything happens. You can walk away at any point." Olivia laughed, the sound brittle. "How generous of you." She turned back to the contract, pulling out her own pen. The weight of it in her hand felt like lead. Nathaniel's hand covered hers, and the contact sent an unwanted jolt through her system. "There's something else you should know." She jerked her hand away. "What?" "More clauses about my silence. Worried I'll run to press." "No," he said, moving around the table, forcing her to meet his gaze. "I want you to understand this isn't about power or control." "Then what is it, Mr. Blackwood?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Connection," he replied, his expression hardening. You fascinate me. Olivia, your defiance, your pride. Even now, standing here about to sign away your dignity, you look at me like I'm beneath you. Maybe because buying someone doesn't make you superior, she shot back. It just makes you rich enough to pretend it is. The tension between them crackled like electricity. Nathaniel stepped closer, and Olivia felt her breath catch. Sign it, he said softly, or walk away. But stop pretending you're here against your will. Her hand trembled as she picked up the pen. The signature she scrawled across the bottom of each page felt like writing her own eulogy. When she finished, she straightened, meeting his gaze with steel in her own. There, you owe me for the next 12 hours. I hope it's worth your $1 million. Nathaniel took the contract, his fingers brushing hers deliberately. Check your phone. She pulled it out, and there it was, a notification from her bank. 7 figures, just like that. The sight made her dizzy. Now, he said, his voice dropping to a tone that sent shivers down her spine. I don't own you, Olivia, but I do intend to possess you completely. He reached for her, but she stepped back. The bathroom. A slight frown creased his brow. Through there. Olivia grabbed her purse and practically fled to the sanctuary of marble and chrome. A reflection in the oversized mirror showed flushed cheeks and wide eyes. She splashed cold water on her face, careful not to ruin her makeup. Her phone was still open to the bank notification. With trembling fingers, she initiated a transfer to the hospital's account. The confirmation came instantly. Her mother's treatment was now paid for in full. The knowledge should have brought relief. Instead, it brought tears that she furiously blinked away. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of him. Outside, she could hear Nathaniel moving around the suite, the clink of glasses, the soft sound of music beginning to play. He was setting the stage for whatever fantasy he'd purchased. Olivia straightened, checking her reflection one final time. The woman who stared back was both familiar and foreign. Same green eyes, same determined set to her jaw. But something fundamental had shifted. She'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. Taking a deep breath, she opened the bathroom door. Nathaniel stood by the windows, his jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He turned at the sound of her heels on the hardwood floor. Better? He asked, and there was something almost gentle in his tone. Don't, she said, crossing to him, close enough to smell his expensive cologne. Don't pretend to care. This is a transaction, remember? His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. What if I want more than that? You can't buy more than that, she whispered, even as her body betrayed her, leaning into his touch. We'll see, he replied. His other hand slid around her waist, pulling her against him. Now, about that possession I mentioned. His lips claimed hers with a hunger that shocked them both. Olivia's last coherent thought was that she'd been wrong. This wasn't just a transaction. It was an inferno, and they were both about to burn. Outside the penthouse windows, New York City sparkled like a sea of stars, indifferent to the drama unfolding in its midst. Two souls tangled in a web of desire and defiance, about to discover that some things, the most dangerous, devastating things, couldn't be bought at any price. The first kiss unleashed something primal in both of them. Nathaniel's control facade cracked as his hands tangled in Olivia's hair, while she fought against a rising tide of desire threatening to drown her resistance. The city lights behind them painted shadows across the suite, turning their encounter into a dance of light and darkness. I want to see you, Nathaniel breathed against her neck, his accent thicker with desire. All of you. Olivia stepped back, her heart thundering against her ribs. With trembling fingers, she reached for the zipper of her dress. The sound of it sliding down seemed to echo in the charged silence between them. Wait, Nathaniel commanded softly. He crossed to the bar, poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal glass. You're shaking. I'm fine, she snapped, but accepted the offered drink. The whiskey burned down her throat, liquid courage setting her nerves on fire. Nathaniel watched her with those steel gray eyes, now dark with something more complex than mere desire. We don't have to. Don't, Olivia interrupted, setting the glass down with more force than necessary. Don't pretend this is anything other than what it is. You bought this night, so take it. His jaw tightened at her words. In 2 strides, he was before her again, one hand gripping her waist while the other tilted her chin up. I bought time, Olivia, not submission. Not you. The distinction startled her, but before she could respond, his mouth was on hers again. This time, the kiss was different, demanding yet gentle, controlled yet passionate. Her body responded against her will, melting into him as her dress slipped to the floor. Nathaniel's sharp intake of breath was gratifying. His hand skimmed her sides, leaving trails of fire on her skin. You're beautiful, he murmured. And for a moment, she almost believed he meant it. The bedroom beckoned, a sanctuary of Egyptian cotton and moonlight. Each step was a surrender, each touch a battle between pride and passion. When Nathaniel laid her down on the silk sheets, Olivia closed her eyes, fighting back unexpected tears. Look at me, he demanded softly. When she did, the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. Stay with me. Here. Now. Their bodies came together in a symphony of sighs and whispered breaths. Nathaniel's control slipped with each passing moment, his polished exterior crumbling under the reality of her. For Olivia, each touch was a contradiction. Wanted and unwanted, pleasure and pain, freedom and captivity. In the aftermath, they lay tangled in sheets and silence. Manhattan's lights painted patterns across their skin, while unsaid words hung heavy in the air between them. Nathaniel's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder, an intimacy she hadn't expected and wasn't sure she wanted. Why me? The question escaped before she could stop it. Nathaniel's hand stilled. Why did you accept? You know why, Olivia replied, sitting up and clutching the sheet to her chest. My mother's medical bills. No, he said, propping himself up on one elbow, studying her face. That's why you considered it, not why you accepted. The observation hit too close to home. Olivia slipped from the bed, gathering her scattered clothing with quick, efficient movements. I should go. Stay, he said, the word somewhere between a command and a plea. That wasn't part of the deal. She disappeared into the bathroom, emerging minutes later fully dressed, her armor back in place. Nathaniel had pulled on his pants but remained shirtless, his hair disheveled in a way that made him look almost human. Have dinner with me tomorrow, he said. Olivia froze in the act of collecting her purse. Dinner. A real date. No contracts. No money. A bitter laugh escaped her. Why? You've already had what you paid for. His expression darkened. Because there's something here, and you feel it too. What I feel is the need to leave, she replied, heading for the door. But his next word stopped her. You're running because you're afraid. Olivia whirled around, fury rising like a tide. Afraid? Of what? The arrogant CEO who thinks he can buy anything he wants? Who sees people as commodities to be traded? No, he said, crossing to her. It took everything she had not to step back. You're afraid because what just happened wasn't what either of us expected. It wasn't just sex, Olivia, and that terrifies you. You're delusional, she said, but her voice shook, betraying her. Am I? His hand cupped her cheek, and for a moment, she leaned into the touch before catching herself. Have dinner with me. Prove me wrong. Olivia jerked away from his touch. Goodbye, Mr. Blackwood. She fled the suite, the sound of her heels on marble echoing like gunshots. The elevator ride down was a blur of emotions she refused to name. In the lobby, the same concierge nodded politely, but Olivia imagined she could see judgment in his eyes. The night air hit Olivia like a slap, and she gulped it down, trying to clear her head. Her phone showed several missed calls from the hospital. Good news for once. The experimental treatment was scheduled to begin tomorrow. Her mother would live. So why did she feel like she'd lost something vital tonight? In his penthouse suite, Nathaniel stood at the windows, watching her figure disappear into a taxi. The sheet still smelled of her perfume, and his body still hummed with the memory of her touch. He hadn't expected this hollow ache, this desperate need to call her back. His phone buzzed with a message from his business partner. "Did you win the bet?" Nathaniel stared at the text, something cold settling in his stomach. The bet, a drunken challenge to prove that everyone had a price. It seemed meaningless now, cruel in a way he hadn't anticipated. He left the message unanswered, pouring himself another drink instead. The whiskey didn't help. Nothing could erase the memory of Olivia's vulnerability in those unguarded moments, or the way she'd looked at him just before fleeing. Like he confirmed every worst suspicion she'd had about him. The night stretched ahead, empty of everything except regret and the growing certainty that he'd made a terrible mistake, not in choosing her, but in thinking he could reduce what happened between them to a simple transaction. As dawn approached, two souls lay awake in different parts of the city, one in a luxury penthouse, one in a modest Queens apartment, both wrestling with the realization that some prices were too high, and some feelings couldn't be bought or sold at any cost. The Lucky Bean Cafe felt different in the harsh light of morning. Olivia moved through her shift mechanically, her mind stuck in a loop of memories she couldn't shake. Every time the door chimed, her heart jumped, expecting to see Nathaniel's tall figure. But he didn't come. "You look like hell," Mia Rodriguez, her co-worker and closest friend, commented while restocking the pastry case. "Rough night?" If she only knew. Olivia forced a smile. "Just tired. Mom's starting the new treatment today." Mia's dark eyes softened. "That's amazing news." The hospital approved it. "I found a way to pay for it." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "Girl, spill. Did you rob a bank? Win the lottery?" Mia's laugh died when she saw Olivia's expression. "Hey, what's really going on?" Before Olivia could respond, the cafe's door opened, letting in a blast of cold air and a man who made her blood freeze. Not Nathaniel, but almost as bad, his business partner, whose face she recognized from Blackwood Industries' website during her late-night research. "Welcome to Lucky Bean," Mia called out, but the man's attention was fixed solely on Olivia. "Ms. Carter," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Ethan Sterling, might I have a word?" Olivia's fingers tightened around the counter. "I'm working. It's about Nathaniel and your arrangement." His voice dropped on the last word, but Mia's raised eyebrows told Olivia she'd heard. "Take your break," Mia whispered. "I've got this." With reluctance, Olivia untied her apron and followed Ethan to a corner table. He sat with the casual arrogance of someone used to commanding rooms. "I'll be brief," he said, straightening his Italian silk tie. "Nathaniel seems to have forgotten our little wager in the wake of your encounter." The word wager hit her like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" Ethan's smile widened. "Oh, he didn't tell you? We had a friendly bet about whether he could convince someone with principles, someone who'd normally never consider such an arrangement, to spend the night with him. For the right price, of course." The cafe seemed to tilt sideways. Olivia's nails dug into her palms under the table. "You're lying." "Am I?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages before placing it before her. There was, in black and white, a conversation between him and Nathaniel from 2 weeks ago. The bet, the challenge, her name. $1 million was his idea, Ethan continued, watching her face. "I thought it was excessive, but he insisted, said someone like you wouldn't accept less. He has excellent judgment, I must say." Olivia stood so abruptly her chair scraped against the floor. "Get out." "Gladly," Ethan said, sliding a business card across the table. "But first, if you're interested in another arrangement, my offer will be considerably higher than Nathaniel's. After all, you've proven your flexibility." The slap echoed through the cafe. Ethan's head snapped to the side, a red mark blooming on his cheek. The few morning customers fell silent. "Keep your money," Olivia spat, "and tell Nathaniel he can go to hell." She stormed past a wide-eyed Mia and into the back room, making it to the employee bathroom before the tears came. The sobs racked her body as the full weight of her humiliation crashed over her. Not just a transaction. A bet. A game. Her phone buzzed. Nathaniel's name on the screen made her want to scream. Instead, she blocked his number with trembling fingers. Back in the cafe, Mia was waiting with concern etched on her face. "Want to tell me what that was about?" Olivia wiped her eyes. No. Yes. I don't know. Start with why you just slapped one of New York's most powerful venture capitalists. Because he deserved it. Olivia took a shaky breath. Remember when I said I found a way to pay for Mom's treatment? Understanding dawned in Mia's eyes. Oh, honey, what did you do? The story poured out between fresh tears. The offer, the contract, the night that had meant nothing to them and everything to her. Mia listened without judgment, her hand tight around Olivia's. I'll kill them both, she declared when Olivia finished. Rich bastards playing games with people's lives. The worst part, Olivia laughed bitterly. For a moment I actually thought he cared. Olivia, Mia's voice was gentle. The money's been paid. Your mom's getting treatment. That's what matters. Because right now I feel like I sold more than just one night. The cafe door chimed again. This time it was Nathaniel. He stood in the doorway, his usual composed appearance slightly disheveled, as if he'd rushed over. Olivia, his voice carried across the cafe. We need to talk. Mia stepped between them. She's not available. Ever. Please. The word sounded foreign from his lips. Let me explain. Olivia squared her shoulders, using anger as armor. Explain what? The bet? How much you won by getting the poor waitress to sell herself? Nathaniel flinched. It wasn't like that. Really? Because your friend Ethan just told me exactly what it was like. She walked up to him, close enough to smell his familiar cologne. You must have had a good laugh. The proud girl who finally showed her true price. I never laughed. His voice was raw. What happened between us was a transaction. Nothing more. She turned away, her voice steady despite the storm inside. Congratulations, Mr. Blackwood. You won your bet. Now get out of my cafe. This isn't over. Yes, it is. She met his gaze one last time. Some things really are priceless, Nathaniel. Like dignity, trust. Maybe next time, bet on those. He stood there for a long moment, something like pain flickering across his features. Then he turned and left, the door closing behind him with a finality that echoed in the silence. Mia wrapped an arm around Olivia's shoulders. You okay? No. Olivia watched through the window as Nathaniel's car pulled away. But I will be. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. When she finally made it to the hospital, her mother was glowing with the news about starting treatment. Olivia sat beside her bed, holding her hand, trying to find comfort in the knowledge that at least some good had come from all this. You look troubled, sweetheart, her mother said, brushing Olivia's hair back like she used to when she was little. I'm fine, Mom. Just tired. You know what your father used to say? The heart knows its own price. I never really understood that until now. Olivia's throat tightened. What do you mean? Whatever burden you're carrying, whatever price you paid, I see it in your eyes. But remember, no debt of love comes with interest. It's already paid in full. The tears came again, but this time they felt cleansing. Her mother held her while she cried, not asking questions, just offering the unconditional love that no amount of money could buy. Across town, Nathaniel sat in his office, staring at the contract on his desk. With deliberate movements, he fed it into the shredder, watching as the paper that had bound them for one night turned to confetti. But the real bonds, the ones neither of them had anticipated, couldn't be so easily destroyed. Nathaniel Blackwood hadn't touched a drink in 3 days, but his office still felt like it was spinning. The Wall Street Journal on his desk declared Blackwood Industries' latest acquisition a triumph. He couldn't bring himself to care. You look terrible, Ethan Sterling commented, leaning against the doorframe of Nathaniel's office. Still brooding over the waitress? Nathaniel's grip tightened on his pen. Get out. Come on, Nate. It was just a bet. She got her $1 million. We got our entertainment. Everyone wins. The pen snapped in Nathaniel's hand, ink staining his fingers like blood. You had no right to tell her. Someone had to, Ethan said, straightening his tie, a gesture Nathaniel had come to hate. You were getting involved. It was embarrassing. Embarrassing. Nathaniel stood slowly. You want to know what's embarrassing, Ethan? That I let you convince me to treat someone's life like a game. That I actually believed I could justify it as anything other than cruelty. Oh, please. Ethan rolled his eyes. She's fine. Probably shopping for a designer wardrobe with your money right now. The sound of Nathaniel's fist hitting his desk made Ethan jump. The money went straight to her medical treatment, every penny. But you knew that, didn't you? You did your research before approaching her at the cafe. A flicker of discomfort crossed Ethan's face. It was business. No, it was personal. You couldn't stand that I was actually feeling something real. Real. Ethan laughed. You bought her for a night, Nate. That's not real. It's a transaction. Get out of my office. Nathaniel's voice was deadly quiet. And, Ethan, consider our partnership under review. You can't be serious. Over some waitress. No. Over the fact that I finally see you for what you are. After Ethan left, Nathaniel sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. On his computer screen, an email from his private investigator displayed photos of Olivia at the hospital with her mother. They were smiling, hope evident in their faces. The treatment was working. He should feel good about that. At least. Instead, the knowledge twisted in his gut like a knife. Across town, Olivia was living her own version of hell. Every customer's face at the cafe reminded her of Nathaniel. Every British accent made her flinch. But she kept moving, kept smiling, kept breathing. Your regular customer's back, Mia announced during the afternoon rush. The cute architect who always tips too much. Olivia glanced up to see Alex Chin waiting in line, his kind face a stark contrast to the sharp memories of Nathaniel that haunted her. He asked about you yesterday, Mia continued, her tone casual but her meaning clear. Said he'd love to take you to dinner sometime. I'm not ready, Olivia said, tie her apron with more force than necessary. It's been 3 weeks, Liv. You can't let those jerks ruin your life. It's not about them. But even as she said it, Olivia knew it was a lie. It was about Nathaniel, about how he'd made her feel alive and worthless in the same breath. The afternoon passed in a blur of orders and 4 smiles. When her shift ended, Olivia headed straight to the hospital, her sanctuary these days. Her mother was sitting up in bed, color in her cheeks for the first time in months. There's my girl, she beamed. And just in time, the doctor has wonderful news. Dr. Emily Chun, Alex's sister as it happened, stood by the bed with a tablet in hand. The treatment is working better than we expected. At this rate, you could be in remission within months. The word should have brought pure joy. Instead, they came with a bitter taste of how this miracle had been bought. That's amazing, Olivia managed, hugging her mother carefully. There's something else, Dr. Chen added, her expression puzzled. The hospital received an anonymous donation this morning, enough to cover the entire course of treatment and follow-up care. Olivia froze. Someone paid for everything? Past bills, future treatment, all of it, Dr. Chen smiled. It seems you have a guardian angel. The room spun slightly. Olivia excused herself, stumbling to the hospital's garden area. Her phone was in her hand before she could think better of it. Nathaniel's number unblocked with trembling fingers. He answered on the first ring. Olivia? Was it you? Her voice cracked. The donation? A pause. Yes. Why? Because it was never about the money. His voice was rough. And because I needed you to know that. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt money. It's penance. Restitution. A way to undo what I can the damage I've done. Olivia sank onto a bench, tears threatening. You can't buy back my trust, Nathaniel. I know, he sounded tired. I'm not trying to. I needed to do something real. Something that wasn't about bets or power or proving a point. Real. She laughed bitterly. Do you even know what that means? I didn't. Not until you. The raw honesty in his voice made her breath catch. Olivia, please, let me explain everything. Face to face. No, her voice wavered. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. She wiped her eyes. Thank you for helping my mother. But this, it needs to stay in the past. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Nathaniel spoke. I understand. But Olivia, what happened that night, it was real for me too. She hung up before he could hear her sob. The phone clutched to her chest like a wound. Inside, her mother was dozing peacefully, free from pain for the first time in months. The sight steadied Olivia. Whatever the cause had been, whatever pain she carried, her mother would live. That had to be enough. Mia was waiting at their apartment when Olivia got home, armed with ice cream and determination. Spill all of it, now. Olivia told her about the donation, about Nathaniel's call, about the mess of feelings she couldn't seem to shake. You know what I think? Mia said, finally, I think he's in love with you. Don't be ridiculous. Think about it. The extra donation, the way he looks at you, the fact that he's basically declaring war on his own company over this. What? Olivia sat up straighter. Mia held up her phone, showing a business news article. Blackwood Industries is splitting up. Nathaniel's buying out Ethan's share and restructuring the whole company. It's all over the financial news. Olivia stared at the photo accompanying the article. Nathaniel leaving a board meeting, his face set in lines she recognized from that night in the hotel. The night everything changed. It doesn't matter, she said finally. Some things can't be fixed with money or grand gestures. No, Mia agreed, but maybe they can be fixed with truth and time and maybe a little forgiveness. Olivia went to bed that night with her mind churning. In her dreams, she was back in that hotel room, but this time, when Nathaniel asked her to stay, she did. When she woke, the pillow was wet with tears she couldn't explain. Across the city, Nathaniel stood at his penthouse windows, looking out at the lights of Manhattan. In his hand, he held the business card he'd given Olivia that first day, retrieved from his desk where she'd left it the morning after. One corner was stained with coffee, a reminder where their story had begun. He'd built his empire on the belief that everything had a price. Now, staring at the card that started it all, he realized some things were truly priceless, and he'd lost them before he even knew their worth. The charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum wasn't Olivia's scene, but when Dr. Chin invited her as a guest speaker to share her mother's success story, she couldn't refuse. The experimental treatment program needed more funding, and her mother's recovery was a testament to its potential. Standing before the mirror in a borrowed evening gown, Olivia barely recognized herself. The deep blue silk made her look elegant, almost regal. Mia had insisted on doing her makeup, transforming her usual casual appearance into something sophisticated. You look amazing, Mia declared, adjusting the dress's neckline. Those rich snobs won't know what hit them. Olivia managed a small smile. I just have to get through this speech without throwing up. You'll be fine, Mia squeezed her shoulder. Just remember, you're not there as anyone's property. You're there as a survivor, a daughter, a warrior. The word struck deeper than Mia could know. 2 months had passed since the night that changed everything, since Nathaniel's revelation and subsequent attempt at redemption. The newspapers were still buzzing about his company's restructuring, the ousting of Ethan Sterling, the mysterious shift in Blackwood Industries' corporate culture. The taxi ride to the Met felt surreal. Olivia clutched her small purse, inside which sat her carefully prepared speech. She had practiced her speech countless times, determined to do justice to the cause. The museum's grand entrance was lit up like a fairy tale. Elegant figures in formal were ascending the steps like modern royalty. Olivia took a deep breath and joined them, her borrowed heels clicking against the marble. Ms. Carter, Dr. Chin appeared, resplendent in a red gown. I'm so glad you made it. Come, I want you to meet some people. The next hour was a blur of introductions, doctors, researchers, philanthropists. Olivia spoke about her mother's journey, watching eyes widen with interest and checkbooks emerge. It felt good, turning her pain into purpose. Then she saw him. Nathaniel stood across the room, devastating in a black tuxedo, deep in conversation with a group of investors. He hadn't noticed her yet, and Olivia took the moment to study him. He looked thinner, the angles of his face sharper. The usual air of arrogant confidence had been replaced by something more subdued. He's been instrumental in funding the program. Dr. Chin commented, following her gaze. Mr. Blackwood's donation was what allowed us to expand the trial to 10 more patients. Olivia's heart clenched. I didn't know he'd be here. He's our biggest supporter now. Dr. Chen's voice held curiosity, though he insisted on remaining anonymous. Do you know him? We've met. Olivia turned away, but not before Nathaniel looked up. Their eyes locked across the crowded room, and the world seemed to stop. He started moving toward her, but was intercepted by another group of guests. Olivia used the opportunity to slip away, finding refuge on a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool against her flushed skin. Below, Manhattan sparkled like scattered diamonds, indifferent to the dramas playing out above. Running away again, she didn't turn at the sound of his voice. Not running, just breathing. Nathaniel moved to stand beside her, careful to maintain distance. You look beautiful. Don't. It's just an observation. He gripped the balcony railing. I didn't know you'd be speaking tonight. Likewise. Olivia finally looked at him. Anonymous donor? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I didn't want to complicate things. By throwing more money at the situation, by trying to prove something, he turned to face her fully. This isn't about you, Olivia, or us. It's about doing something that matters. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Why the change of heart? You! The word hung between them. You showed me that success without soul is just elaborate failure. Olivia's carefully constructed walls trembled. Nathaniel, I'm not asking for forgiveness. He ran a hand through his hair, a surprisingly vulnerable gesture. I don't deserve it, but I need you to know that meeting you, it changed everything. $1 million epiphany. The words came out bitter, but her voice shook. No! He stepped closer, and this time she didn't back away. A priceless one. I spent my life believing everything could be bought. You proved me wrong. The sound of applause drifted from inside. Olivia's speech will be soon. I have to go, she whispered. Have dinner with me. She stared at him. What? Not tonight, not tomorrow. When you're ready. If you're ever ready. His eyes held hers. No contracts, no games. Just truth. Before she could respond, Dr. Chin appeared at the balcony doorway. Olivia, you're on in 5 minutes. I'll be right there. She turned back to Nathaniel, but he was already stepping away. Think about it, he said softly. That's all I'm asking. Her speech was a triumph. Standing at the podium, describing her mother's journey and the miracle of modern medicine, Olivia felt strong, whole. When she mentioned the anonymous donors who made it all possible, her eyes found Nathaniel's in the crowd. He nodded slightly, acknowledgement and something more passing between them. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. More introductions, more conversations about hope and healing. Through it all, Olivia felt Nathaniel's presence like a magnetic field, drawing her attention even when he was across the room. As the gala wound down, she found herself back on the balcony. The city had quieted, though New York never truly slept. Your speech was incredible. Mia's text lit up her phone. How are you holding up? Olivia stared at the message, thinking about truth and redemption, about the price of pride and the cost of forgiveness. He asked me to dinner, she typed. In fact, Mia's response was immediate, and I don't know. Yes, you do. Olivia closed her eyes, remembering the raw honesty in Nathaniel's voice, the changes he'd made, the lives he was helping save. Not for show, not for her, but because something in him had fundamentally shifted. When she opened them again, she saw him leaving the museum below, his solitary figure illuminated by streetlights. Without letting herself think too hard, she pulled out the business card she'd kept all these months. Not his original one, but the one he'd left at the cafe after the truth came out. His personal number was scrawled on the back. Her fingers moved over the keys. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Lucky Bean. We close at 7, but I'll have coffee ready. His response came seconds later. I'll be there. Olivia slipped her phone away, her heart racing with something that felt like fear, but might have been hope. Some debts couldn't be repaid with money. Some wounds needed time more than treasure to heal. And some stories, she was beginning to realize, didn't end where you thought they would. Up above, the stars fought to be seen through New York's light pollution. Olivia thought about her mother, growing stronger every day, about second chances and the price of redemption, about how sometimes the most valuable things in life were the ones that couldn't be bought at any price. She touched the balcony railing where Nathaniel's hand had rested earlier, feeling the ghost of his warmth. Tuesday was 5 days away, time enough to prepare, to think, to decide if some risks were worth taking twice. But deep down, she already knew. Some choices weren't about logic or pride, or even self-preservation. They were about the heart's own arithmetic, calculating worth in measures that no accountant could track. Lucky Bean looked different after hours. The usually bustling cafe was silent, chairs upturned on tables, the evening light casting long shadows through the windows. Olivia moved through her closing routine mechanically, trying to calm her racing heart. "You don't have to do this," Mia had said before leaving. "We can still call it off." But Olivia knew she had to. Some conversations needed to happen, no matter how difficult they might be. At 7:58, she heard his car pull up outside. Nathaniel was nothing if not punctual. She watched through the window as he approached the door, noticing how he dressed down, dark jeans and a cashmere sweater instead of his usual suits. More human, less armor. The bell chimed as he entered. They stood for a moment, the space between them heavy with unspoken words. "You came," she said finally. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I didn't know." She gestured to a corner table, the only one still set up. "Coffee's ready." He followed her, taking in the transformed space. "I've never seen it like this. Peaceful, that's one word for it." Olivia poured 2 cups from the French press she prepared. "Another might be empty, like a lot of things in my life lately." He accepted the cup, their fingers brushing briefly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "I'm still not sure why I did." She sat across from him, the small table creating an intimate space that felt both comforting and dangerous. "Yes, you are." His eyes met hers. "The same reason I asked. We need to finish what we started." "And what's that?" "The transaction? The bet." The word still hurt, but less than before. Nathaniel set his cup down carefully. "I deserve that. But no, I mean the truth, all of it." "I'm listening," she said. He took a deep breath. "The bet with Ethan. It was real. We were drunk, arguing about human nature. He said everyone had a price, that principles were just luxuries people couldn't afford. I disagreed, then realized I was being a hypocrite. I'd never been tested, never had to choose between my principles and survival. So you decided to test someone else?" Her voice was quiet. "I decided to prove him right," which was worse. Nathaniel's hands clenched around his cup. "When I saw you that morning, your pride, your strength, you became the perfect target. I thought I'd teach you a lesson about reality. Instead, you taught me one. About courage, about sacrifice, about what real strength looks like. That night, it changed everything." Olivia sipped her coffee, buying time. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve the whole truth. Because I've spent every day since then trying to become someone worthy of what I saw in her eyes before you knew about the bet." The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. "And have you," she asked, "become that person?" "No." His answer surprised her. "But I'm trying. Every decision I make, every change in my company, every donation to the hospital, they're not about redemption. They're about growth, about finally understanding what matters." "And what matters, Nathaniel?" "Purpose," he said. "The ability to look in the mirror and see something more than a balance sheet." He leaned forward. "You matter, Olivia. What I did to you matters. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." She stood abruptly, needing space. The cafe felt too small suddenly, too intimate. "I need some air." Nathaniel followed her to the front door. She unlocked it, stepping out into the evening air. The street was quiet, most businesses closed for the day. "I hated you," she said finally, "not for the money or even the bet, but for making me feel something real in the middle of something fake." It wasn't fake. He moved closer, his presence magnetic. The circumstances were wrong. The beginning was tainted. But what happened between us? That was real. How can you be sure? Because I've never been the same since. His voice dropped. Because I measure every moment, every decision, every feeling against that night, and everything falls short. Olivia turned to face him, finding him closer than she expected. I'm not the same either. His hand came up, hovering near her cheek, but not touching. You're stronger, wiser, even more beautiful. Don't, she said, but she didn't move away. It's just truth, Olivia. No agenda, no games. Just a man telling a woman she takes his breath away. The streetlight cast shadows across his face, highlighting the vulnerability in his expression. Olivia felt her carefully constructed walls trembling. I can't go back, she whispered. I'm not asking you to, he said. I'm asking you to go forward. With me. His hand finally made contact, cupping her cheek. No contracts, no prices, just us finding out what's real. The touch of his skin against hers sent electricity through her body. Memories of their night together flooded back. Not the shame or the anger, but the connection. The feeling of being seen, truly seen. And if it doesn't work, then we'll know we tried, he said, that we didn't let fear or pride or the past steal our future. Olivia closed her eyes, leaning slightly into his touch. I'm scared. Good. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. So am I. It means this matters. A car passed, its headlights sweeping across them, breaking the moment. Olivia stepped back, but something had shifted between them. I should close up properly, she said. Let me help, he offered. They moved through the cafe together, their movements a careful dance of awareness. As she locked the final drawer and set the alarm, Olivia felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. Have dinner with me, Nathaniel said as they stood at her car. A real date. No pressure, no expectations. Just food and conversation, and whatever happens next. Olivia looked at him, really looked at him. The arrogant CEO was gone, replaced by something more real, more human. Still complex, still capable of hurt, but also capable of growth. One condition, she said. Anything. We start fresh. No more apologies, no more guilt. Just two people getting to know each other properly. The smile that broke across his face transformed him. As she drove home later, Olivia realized she was smiling too. The past couldn't be erased, but maybe it could be repurposed. Turned from a wound into wisdom, from a scar into strength. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathaniel. Asterisk, thank you for tonight. For coffee. For truth. For second chances. Asterisk. She replied with what felt like her first honest words to him. Thank you for becoming someone worth taking a chance on. The city lights blurred as she drove, each one a star in her own private constellation of choices and changes. Sometimes she was learning the most expensive things in life were free, and the most valuable currencies weren't measured in dollars, but in truth, courage, and the willingness to begin again. Nathaniel's idea of a first date was what Olivia expected. Instead of an upscale restaurant or exclusive club, he'd suggested the High Line at sunset. She found him waiting at the Gansevoort Street entrance, holding 2 paper cups from a local vendor. Hot chocolate, he explained, offering her one. Better than champagne for walking and talking. The thoughtfulness of it, choosing a public place, keeping things casual, touched her more than any grand gesture could have. No suit today either, she observed, taking in his dark pea coat and scarf. I'm trying something new. His smile was self-deprecating. Being human. They began walking, the elevated park relatively quiet in the early evening. October had painted the urban gardens in golds and reds, and the setting sun turned the Hudson into liquid fire. Tell me something real, Olivia said, warming her hands on the cup. Something you've never told anyone. Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, considering. I hate my job. She stopped walking, staring at him. But you built your empire. I built a prison, he corrected. Every acquisition, every merger, every power play. They were all about proving something. To my father, to the world, to myself. And now, Now I'm trying to turn it into something meaningful. The hospital program is just the beginning. He leaned against the railing, looking out over the city. I want to create actual value, not just wealth. Olivia studied his profile, seeing the weight of transformation in the lines of his face. That's why Ethan fought the restructuring so hard. He didn't understand. Couldn't understand. Nathaniel turned to her. You did that, made me see the difference between price and value. Nathaniel, no, let me finish, he interrupted. That night, watching you struggle with your choice, seeing the cost in your eyes, it broke something in me, made me question everything I thought I knew about worth. A cool breeze swept through the park, carrying the scent of the river and late-blooming flowers. Olivia pulled her jacket closer. Your turn, he said softly. Tell me something real. She took a deep breath. I'm terrified of forgetting who I am. What do you mean? This pull between us. It's strong, magnetic, but the last time I gave into it, I lost myself. She met his gaze. I'm afraid of disappearing into you again. Nathaniel moved closer, but didn't touch her. I don't want you to disappear. I want you to shine. Pretty words, she said. True words, he countered. He gestured at the city spread out before them. Look at all this. I used to see it as a game board, properties to acquire, deals to win. You made me see the humanity in it, the stories behind every window light. They continued walking, passing to the Chelsea Market Passage where the scent of fresh bread and coffee filled the air. My mother asked about you, Olivia said suddenly. Nathaniel's step faltered. She knows everything. Olivia watched his reaction carefully. She wanted to meet the man who saved her life. I didn't. Yes, you did, she interrupted. The initial payment, the anonymous donation, the research funding. She's alive because of you. She's alive because of you. Nathaniel stopped, turned to face her fully. Everything I did was just money. What you did. Taking that $1 million even though it broke your heart. Choosing her life over your pride. That was real courage. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. I never thought of it that way. Of course you didn't, he said. You're too busy judging yourself. His hand found hers, warm despite the cool evening. Let me take you to dinner. There's a little Italian place around the corner that makes pasta like prayers. The restaurant was tiny and authentic, with red checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. The owner greeted Nathaniel like family, leading them to a corner table partially hidden by a brick archway. You come here often? Olivia asked as they settled in. I found it after everything, he said. Started walking the city at night, trying to clear my head. Ended up here more nights than I can count. Thinking about you. The admission hung between them, honest and raw. Before Olivia could respond, their waiter arrived with bread and wine. To new beginnings, Nathaniel proposed, raising his glass. To truth, Olivia countered, clinking her glass against his. The food was incredible, simple, rustic dishes that spoke of tradition and care. They talked about everything and nothing. Her mother's recovery, his company's transformation, their shared love of early morning coffee and late-night walks. Let's dance, Nathaniel said softly as the faint strains of music drifted from the cafe's old speakers. There's no dance floor, Olivia protested, though her heart fluttered at the suggestion. Since when we follow conventional rules? He stood, offering his hand. In the small space between tables, they swayed together. It felt different from their first night. No power plays, no hidden agendas, just two people finding their way to each other. I never told you, Nathaniel murmured against her hair. But that night in the hotel, when you left before dawn, I couldn't breathe. It felt like you took all the oxygen with you. Olivia's hands tightened on his shoulders. I couldn't stay. If you had... I know, she whispered. But I wanted you to, he said, his voice raw. God, how I wanted you to. The honesty in his voice made her look up. His eyes were dark with memory, and something more immediate, more dangerous. Nathaniel, I'm not going to kiss you, he said softly. Not until you're ready. Not until you trust me again. The walk back to her car was charged with unspoken possibilities. The city had come alive with night energy, but they moved in their own bubble of quiet intensity. "Thank you," Olivia said as they reached her car. "For tonight. For everything." "Thank you for giving me a chance to be better," he replied, touching her cheek briefly. "Dinner again next week?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. Later that night, lying in bed, Olivia's phone lit up with a text from Nathaniel. Asterisk, I meant what I said about the kiss. But know that when it happens, it will be because you choose it, because you want it, because it's real. Asterisk. She held the phone to her chest, feeling her heart race. After everything, the contract, the bet, the pain and healing, here they were, starting fresh, building something true from the ashes of something false. Her reply was simple. Real is worth waiting for. Across the city, in his penthouse office, Nathaniel read her message and smiled. The lights of Manhattan spread out below him. But for once, he wasn't thinking about power or profits. He was thinking about hot chocolate and dancing in tiny restaurants, about second chances and the priceless value of earning trust, one moment at a time. 3 weeks of real dates had changed everything, and nothing. Olivia found herself looking forward to their moments together. Quiet dinners, long walks, conversations that stretched into the night. But the past still haunted them, an unwelcome ghost at every meeting. The article that shattered their fragile peace appeared in Business Insider on a Tuesday morning. Mia burst into the cafe's break room, tablet in hand, her face pale. "Liv, you need to see this." The headline hit like a physical blow. Blackwood industry split. The $1 million bet that changed everything. Below was a photo of Nathaniel and Ethan, along with details of their falling out, including the bet that had started it all. Olivia's hands shook as she read. The article painted her as an unnamed waitress, a pawn in a game between billionaires. But anyone who knew the players could connect the dots. Her phone buzzed. Nathaniel's name on the screen made her stomach lurch. Asterisk, I'm on my way. Please, let me explain. Asterisk. But the damage was done. Customers were already giving her strange looks, whispering behind their hands. One woman even took a photo of her while pretending to check her phone. "Go home," Mia urged. "I'll cover your shift." Olivia shook her head. "No, I won't hide." When Nathaniel arrived 20 minutes later, she was serving customers with mechanical precision, her face a mask of composure. He looked devastated, his usual polish cracked. "Olivia," he said, his voice strained. "Not here," she replied, nodding toward the back door. 5 minutes. In the alley behind the cafe, the autumn wind whipped between the buildings, carrying the scent of approaching rain. Ethan leaked it. Nathaniel said immediately, "He's trying to damage the company's reputation before the final split. Did you know?" Her voice was steady despite the storm inside. "Did you know he was going to do this?" "No. God, no. I would never." "But you knew it was possible," she interrupted. "You knew this could happen. And you didn't warn me." Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, disheveled by the wind. "I thought I had contained it. The legal team was supposed to stop." "Just stop." Olivia held up a hand. "Do you know what it feels like? To have your lowest moment splashed across the internet? To be reduced to the waitress who sold herself for $1 million. You're so much more than that." "Am I?" Her voice broke. "Because right now, all I feel is cheap. Exposed. Like everything we built these past weeks was just damage control." "That's not true." He moved toward her, but she stepped back. "What we have is real." "Is it?" She shot back. "Or is it just another transaction? Paying for my forgiveness instead of my body?" The words hit him like physical blows. "How can you think that? After everything we've shared?" "That's just it, Nathaniel," she said, her voice trembling. "We shared beautiful moments, yes, but we never really dealt with the ugly ones. We just papered over them with nice dinners and sweet words." Thunder rumbled overhead, matching the turmoil in her chest. Nathaniel looked lost, younger somehow without his usual confidence. "Tell me how to fix this," he pleaded. "You can't." Tears mixed with the first drops of rain. "Some things can't be fixed with money or power or even love." Love. His voice caught on the word. Yes, love. Olivia laughed bitterly. Because that's what this is, isn't it? That's why it hurts so much. That's why every step forward feels like walking on broken glass. The rain was falling steadily now, soaking them both. Nathaniel's expensive suit clung to him, but he didn't seem to notice. I love you, he said simply. I think I have since that first night, when you looked at me with such defiance, even as you were breaking inside. Don't, she whispered. No, you need to hear this. He stepped closer. I love your strength, your pride, your capacity for forgiveness. I love how you make me want to be better, do better, live better. Stop it, she cried openly now, the rain hiding her tears. You don't get to say these things now, when everything's falling apart. When else should I say them, he asked. When it's safe, when it's easy. He closed the distance between them. I love you, Olivia Carter, not despite our past, but because of how we've grown from it. She stared at him, this man who had bought her for a night and spent months trying to earn her heart. I have to go back to work, she said, her voice breaking. Please, his hand caught hers. Don't let Ethan win. Don't let the past destroy our future. I need time, she pulled away. To think, to process. How much time? I don't know. She turned toward the door, then paused. I love you too, Nathaniel. That's what makes this so hard. Back in the cafe, Mia took one look at her rain-soaked appearance and pulled her into a fierce hug. Go home, honey, for real this time. This time, Olivia didn't argue. She gathered her things, avoiding the curious stares of customers who had surely read the article by now. Her phone was flooded with messages. Friends, acquaintances, even her mother's doctor. But it was the latest headline that caught her. Breaking. Nathaniel Blackwood calls emergency press conference. She watched the live stream from her apartment, hands clasped around a mug of tea gone cold. Nathaniel stood before a forest of microphones, looking more determined than she'd ever seen him. Yes, there was a bet, he admitted to the assembled reporters. A cruel, thoughtless wager that I will regret for the rest of my life. But what started as a game became a lesson in humanity, in value, in love. The reporters erupted with questions, but he raised a hand for silence. The woman at the center of this story showed me that true worth can't be measured in dollars. She taught me that real power lies not in what you can buy, but in what you choose to give freely. I won't name her or expose her to your speculation, but I will say this. She changed my life. And if this scandal cost me my company, my reputation, even my fortune, it will have been worth it, because it led me to her. Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Asterisk, damn girl. That man loves you. Asterisk, another from her mother. Sometimes, the greatest love stories start in the strangest ways. The rain continued to fall outside her window, washing the city clean. Olivia thought about choices and consequences, about love and forgiveness, about the difference between price and worth. Her fingers hovered over Nathaniel's contact information. The last 3 weeks had been beautiful, but maybe too easy. Maybe they needed the storm to wash away the last of their pretenses. I still need time, she typed finally, asterisk, but I'm not running away. Not this time, asterisk. His response came immediately, asterisk, I'll wait, for as long as it takes. Because you're worth everything, asterisk. Olivia set her phone down, watching the rain transform New York into a city of blurred lights and soft edges. Sometimes love wasn't about grand gestures or public declarations. Sometimes it was about the courage to face hard truths, to weather storms together, to build something real from the wreckage of what was false. The ghost of their first night still lingered, but it no longer haunted her. It had become part of their story. Not the ending, not even the beginning, but crucial chapter in a book they were still writing together. 1 month. That's how long Olivia took to find her center again. Through the media frenzy, the whispers, the speculation, she kept working at Lucky Bean, head held high. Her mother's recovery continued to progress, and somehow, the scandal had led to an unexpected surge in donations to the hospital's research program. Nathaniel respected her request for space, sending only one message each morning. Asterisk, I'm here when you're ready. No pressure. No demands. Asterisk, just quiet constancy that spoke louder than any grand gesture. It was a crisp December morning when Olivia finally replied, asterisk the high line. Tonight at sunset, where we had our first real date. Asterisk. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Mia helped her close the cafe early, fussing over her appearance like a mother hen. You sure about this? She asked, adjusting Olivia's scarf. I'm sure about him, Olivia said, the certainty in her voice surprising them both. The high line was transformed by winter, the garden sleeping under frost, holiday lights twinkling in the gathering dusk. Nathaniel waited at their spot, 2 paper cups in hand. Hot chocolate, just like before. Hi, he said simply, offering her a cup. She accepted it, their fingers brushing. You look tired, she observed. Haven't been sleeping well? His smile was self-deprecating. Turns out love is more exhausting than hostile takeovers. They walked in comfortable silence, sipping their drinks. The city spread out below them, a symphony of lights and life. I saw the news, Olivia said finally, about Ethan's countersuit. Nathaniel nodded. He's trying to prove I violated our partnership agreement by making unilateral decisions. Are you worried about losing the company? No. He stopped walking, turning to face her. About losing you? Terrified. Olivia studied him in the fading light. The polished CEO was gone, replaced by a man who had learned the true meaning of value. I'm not yours to lose anymore, she said softly. I know. His voice was rough. You never were. That was the point I missed at the beginning. And now I know that love isn't ownership. It's choice. Every day, every moment, choosing each other. She moved closer, drawn by the raw honesty in his words. I went to see your mother, he continued, last week. This surprised her. Why? Because I needed to understand. To see the person you'd sacrificed everything for. To thank her for raising a daughter strong enough to break me and rebuild me into someone better. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. What did she say? She said I was an idiot. His laugh was genuine. Then she told me about your father. How he taught you that true worth isn't in what you own, but in what you give. He took a shaky breath. She also said you've been miserable this past month. I needed the time. I know. Did it help? Olivia looked out over the city. Their city, with all its complexities and contradictions. Yes, I needed to be sure that I was choosing you for the right reasons. That we weren't just trying to rewrite our beginning. And I realized something. She turned back to him. Our beginning doesn't define us. What defines us is every choice we've made since then. Every step toward truth, toward healing, toward love. Nathaniel's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. I love you, he whispered. Not because of that night, not despite it, but because of who we become through all of this. I love you too. The words felt like freedom. And I'm ready. For what? Instead of answering, she kissed him. It was nothing like their first kiss, heated and desperate in that hotel room. This was gentle, certain, full of promise. His arms went around her, holding her like something precious yet strong. When they finally parted, the city had slipped into full darkness, the holiday lights creating a magical glow around them. I have something for you, Nathaniel said, reaching into his coat pocket. If it's a contract, I'm pushing you off this walkway, Olivia warned, making him laugh. No contracts. He pulled out a small, worn piece of paper. Just this. It was his original business card, the one he'd given her that first morning at the cafe. The corners were soft with handling, the once crisp surface wrinkled and stained. You kept it. As a reminder of who I was, who I became, who I want to be, he held it out. I thought we could tear up together, start completely fresh. Olivia took one corner of the card, feeling the weight of their history in its thin surface. Together, they tore into tiny pieces, letting the winter wind carry them away like confetti. Now what? She asked, watching the pieces disappear into the night. Now we write our own story. He pulled her close. No prices, no bets, no power plays. Just us. It won't be easy, she warned. The media, Ethan's lawsuit, people's judgments. Nothing worth having ever is. His kiss was soft against her temple, but we've already survived the worst. Everything else is just noise. They walked the rest of the High Line hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. About her mother's improving health, about his plans to transform Blackwood Industries into a force for good, about their shared future stretching out before them like an unwritten book. At her car, Nathaniel held her close, breathing in her warmth. "Move in with me," he murmured. Olivia pulled back, raising an eyebrow. "That's a bit presumptuous, Mr. Blackwood." "Not to the penthouse," he clarified quickly. "I'm selling it. Too many ghosts. I bought a brownstone in the West Village. For bedrooms, a garden, room for your mother when she's stronger. You bought a house without asking me?" "I bought a home, hoping you'd help make it one." His eyes were earnest. "Say yes." Olivia pretended to consider it. "Does it have a good coffee maker?" "Top of the line, and a kitchen bigger than Lucky Bean." She wound her arms around his neck. "Ask me properly." Nathaniel's smile was radiant. "Olivia Carter, love of my life, woman who taught me the true meaning of worth. Will you make a home with me?" She kissed him softly. "Yes, but I'm keeping my job at the cafe. I wouldn't have it any other way." Later that night, curled together on his hotel room couch, he'd moved out of the penthouse weeks ago. They watched the city lights dance across the ceiling. "You never did tell me," Nathaniel mused, playing with her fingers. "Why did you accept that night?" "Really?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, because even then, underneath all the anger and pride, I saw something in you. A loneliness that matched my own. A hunger for something real in a world of false values. And now, she shifted to look at him. This man who had bought her for $1 million and ended up giving her something priceless instead. Now I know that some things can't be bought or sold. They can only be given freely, chosen daily, built carefully. She touched his face. Like trust, like love, like us. Outside, snow began to fall, transforming New York into a wonderland of possibilities. In a hospital room across town, Olivia's mother was getting stronger every day. In a West Village brownstone, their future home waited to be filled with love and laughter. And in that moment, holding each other in the quiet night, they were simply Nathaniel and Olivia, two people who had found something real in the most unlikely place, proving that true love's worth went far beyond any price that could be named. Asterisk, how much is your dignity worth? Olivia chose to sacrifice hers for the love of her mother. Have you ever been forced to choose between your principles and the survival of someone you love? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Asterisk, your feedback and support mean the world to us. We're so grateful to have you as part of our community. Stay tuned for more exciting stories. There's so much more to come. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for being here, and we can't wait to share the next adventure with you.